Hello, welcome back to episode 7 of season 3 of Uncanny Oddities. And tonight we will be discussing egregores and how they relate to tulpas. Now, on our last episode this past week, we briefly mentioned Spider in particular, briefly mentioned the term egregore. So I spent the last night doing a little bit of research into it, and I would like to discuss it a little bit further. So this week we were discussing the story of Philip Ellsford and whether or not he was a ghost or maybe a tulpa, and if a tulpa can be a ghost and some stuff like that. And Spider brought up a term that I had recently discovered, uh, probably over the course of the last month or so, and I kind of went down a little rabbit hole a little bit, but I went a little bit deeper. And an egregore, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's start with a tulpa. A tulpa is essentially a thought given physical form. It is something that the concept of a tulpa is you focus intensely on a subject, typically a fictional character of some sort, or a character that you strongly believe in and want to become a real true character. So basically, a tulpa, you focus your thoughts and intentions, and over time, you can create a thought form that takes physical form and can actually interact with the world. But typically, you maintain control over the tulpa because it was your creation. So you give it, like, the personality that it has and stuff like that. Now, the difference with an egregore, from my understanding, is this kind of like a super tulpa. All right. The egregore is something that is created on a much larger scale than a tulpa. Whereas a tulpa is like a personal thing that you do for yourself more often than not. An egregore is more like the social version, the societal version of a tulpa. It's like a tulpa on steroids, okay? It's created by a group or a collective conscious, such as humanity as a whole. And I started thinking about this, and the fact that an egregore develops a mind of its own, goes through people in order to exert its will, and does all these like puppetry things behind the scenes and everything. And it got me thinking, it kind of reminds me of religion in general, whether it's ancient Greek religion with Zeus and stuff like that with Hercules and Hades and Aphrodite and all that, or it's more modern stuff with God, Allah, Jesus, and stuff like this. It's very intriguing to me because it almost feels like the religious deities might actually be some sort of egregores because so many people believed in these so strongly, so fiercely, and for such a long period of time that they actually became real life things that people actually see in their real life. And so it got me thinking, and my thoughts went even deeper. What if werewolves, fairies, pixies, vampires, dragons, all these things that we think are not real, fictional, or false, what if they just aren't real to us on an individual level? But what if they're egregores that are real to other people on a much larger scale? Because maybe the reason that you or I don't see werewolves or vampires, well, obviously, is because we don't believe in them strongly enough. But if someone truly believes in vampires, werewolves, or whatever else, like with all their soul, all their heart, and every fiber of their being, and they truly 100% genuinely believe in something, like as a group of, collective people who collectively believe in something, is it possible that they could create something with their thoughts alone? aliens, UFOs. Maybe aliens are egregores. And that's what I'm getting at is like this rabbit hole goes so deep is like literally everything on this entire planet could be an egregore. And as we have been known to mention on this podcast a few times, American Gods, also a great example of egregores. Looking back at it, knowing about egregores and what we know about them now, American Gods would be a great example of egregores because they had the old gods, like Loki, Zeus, and, Odin and stuff like that. But they also had newer gods like technology and the internet. And those really stood out to me, stuff like that, and how they personified technology and the internet and celebrities and all this other stuff as, you know, physical things that actually were being worshipped. And in a way, we do worship technology. I mean, look, it's on my head right now. I'm using a camera, headphones, computer, monitor, phone. We are surrounded by technology, and we give technology so much of our mental focus and our energy and our spiritual powers that who's to say that technology doesn't exist simply because we believed that it could to the point where we actually brought it into the physical world. And what if everything in our reality, be it technology or, communication, anything and everything has the potential to be an egregore? Like, that's one of the things that's so interesting to me is how many different things actually have the potential to be egregores, because it's a very symbolic and metaphorical concept in my mind. I find it to be a very symbolic thing because even when an egregore is created, they are often created for a specific mission or purpose. And if you don't believe in the egregore, it will still actually develop a mind of its own. Not, it's not guaranteed, but if not properly, fueled with mental and spiritual beliefs and focus, and, if not properly taken care of according to the spiritual, rules of egregores, it does have the potential to go out on its own and make up its own ideals and everything else and operate through people to further its own goals, even if those goals differ from the goals that you originally instilled within it when you created one. For example, truth and justice could be considered egregores because a lot of people believe that truth and justice are important, and they believe that they are things that exist. They believe that they exist, therefore they do, to a point. And that's the thing I'm trying to get across is egregores and our very reality around us is created through our mind. And if you believe in egregores, then they exist. If you don't believe in egregores, then they don't exist for you in your individual world. And that's what I find so interesting is how the Human Consciousness Project, the Observer Effect, and so many other things throughout our reality actually kind of, not directly, but indirectly support the idea of tulpas and egregores. Because the basic concept of a tulpa or egregore is creating something simply by thinking about it and putting a lot of focus and mental acuity into the thought. So, in a way, we're creating egregores pretty much every single day with every single thought that we have. And that is very intriguing to me. So, that's really all I got tonight. It's a short episode. Just wanted to dig a little bit deeper into egregores and give some of my own thoughts on that. So, thank you for coming out tonight, and we hope to see you next time. Next week, we will be continuing with ghost ships. So, that one should be very interesting. So, we will see you next week. Thank you, and as always, stay uncanny.